to make sure.
Hello and welcome into this week's edition of AFMC TV. We're glad you're joining us. Today, an important topic. This one is for all the men in our lives. We're talking about men's health and many topics surrounding it. Joining me today is Dr. Byron Curtner here with AFMC. And so, we thought it made sense. If we're going to talk about men's health, well, let's bring a man in and talk about men's health.
Makes sense.
So, it's hard for men to go to the doctor. Why do you think that is?
Well, this may be crazy, and I'll have to admit I don't have a lot of evidence for this, but I'm going to contend that that's not true.
Okay.
That's going to be, and that may be wild, and that does fly in the face of the conventional wisdom. But my little bit of flimsy evidence for that is back in 2015, 2017, I'm not sure the exact dates, the CDC did a study addressing that question.
Okay.
It wasn't the world's fanciest study. They just went and asked people, have you seen a doctor in the last year? And what they found was that the differences weren't as dramatic as what we might think. Okay. About 70% of men in the low 70s said they'd seen a doctor in the last year. And about the mid 80s women. So the differences weren't as dramatic.
That's right.
And then if you break it down by age group, over 65, there was virtually no difference in men and women after the age of 65.
No kidding.
Yeah, and if you look at the differences were mostly from younger folks, which probably kind of makes sense because 20-year-old men, 30-year-old men probably don't need to be running the doctor all the time. And women, are pregnant. They got to go see a doctor when they're pregnant.
Right.
There's birth control pills, there's pap smears. So I don't have a lot of evidence of this, and it's kind of a wild theory, but I'm going to contend it's not true.
Well, I like that.
Until proven otherwise.
Okay, well, let's go with that.
I'm going to.
Let's go with that. We've got Father's Day coming up, and so are there conversation starters that maybe grown children, adult children, might want to have with their father to just kind of ascertain how dad's health is?
Well, speaking as an old man with grown children, I would say no. Okay. I would say mind your own
Don't
business.
do that. Okay.
Now, that's not entirely true.
That's what my dad would say too.
Yeah, and of course that's not true. To me, probably the wisest thing is to, in general, mind your own business, leave your old dad alone.
Right.
But I don't think there's anything wrong. I think it's a good idea to maybe mention it one time and say, Dad, have you seen the doctor? And explain why. Golly, we'd like to see the doctor. Maybe here's a good thing. Here's the reasons. And when your cranky old dad won't do it, I think you kind of got to leave it alone and just leave that up to him. Now, given that, there are going to be some exceptions to that. If your dad's having chest pain, if he's got a big black mole that looks like a melanoma, if he's got some kind of horrible condition, you just got to fuss at him and just stay after him till he goes. So, there's some judgment to that. But, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. That's kind of my thinking on that.
Yeah. Are there some milestones, though, for men or ages where you really do you're past the age of 40 and so you need that colonoscopy or you need this or you need that? What are some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very, very important. One of the most important things you can do, and I always said 40. There's some leeway. Some people say younger, some people older. There's not a lot of hard evidence one way or the other. But I think sometime around the age of 40, you really ought to try to make an effort to go to the doctor at least once a year when you're not sick. Go to the doctor when you're feeling fine and let him just kind of kick your tires. Yeah. There's some things you need to have done and some things that can save your life, even if you're doing okay. There are immunizations you need. There's cancer screening of all kinds. There are things you ought to do. And if you go when you're sick, most doctors don't have the time to address those things while they're trying to address your sickness.
Yep.
And so I think my recommendation would probably start around 40. I'd go see the doctor once every year. think that's a really, really good idea.
I think that's great advice to go when you're not sick.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important because doctors are busy, and if you got 4 things wrong with you, he's not going to have time to talk to you about your cholesterol or your prostate cancer screening or your colon cancer screening or your shingles shot or your pneumonia shot, all those kind of things that you really ought to have.
Yeah, okay. That's good. That's real good. So this time of year, we're all, I shouldn't say we, but most of us we're outside, we're in the garden, maybe we're cycling, maybe we're running trails in the woods. Plenty of opportunity to run into ticks.
Oh, yeah.
And all those fun creatures.
Oh, they're nasty critters. They're just nothing nastier than a tick.
So what do we need to do? And I mean, just at a baseline, if we're working in the garden, or cutting grass, even some of the men who are bush hogging. What do you do? What do you recommend? Where do you look?
By and large, I think you ought to try to stay out of the woods in the summer in Arkansas. I mean, it's too darn hot. Every bug on earth is out there. The copperheads, the cottonmouths are out. And of course, the nastiest of all critters are ticks. Yes. If you get in heavy brush, you're going to get ticks on you. Awful help. But you're right. Arkansas is a hotbed for tick-borne disease, one of the biggest in the nation, most common. And 50% of people that get tick-borne disease do not remember, are not aware of having a tick come off of them. So even if you go out and get the paper, you can get a tick on you and you can get sick. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
There's no good way. You just, if you've been exposed, you need to really carefully check yourself for ticks, because the longer the tick is on you, the more likely you are to get sick. The sooner you can get that devil off of you, the better off you are.
How do you get it off? I've heard people, I've heard tweezers, I've heard some people take a match or something, a fire, and so...
The people that are supposed to know say don't burn them. They say it's just a bad idea.
I'd rather not.
Yeah, what could go wrong with that? Right. A hot paper clip's been the whole thing. But the experts say take some fine tweezers, grab them by the end, slow, firm pressure without twisting. Because if you twist him, you're going to take his head off, and that's a whole other thing. And you generally got to go to the doctor and get it dug out. So you want to just gently. And then once you get him off, don't squish him, not with your hands, but put him on Scotch tape and hang on to him in case you get sick, because it might help down the road to know what kind of tick you got bit with.
Okay.
Particularly if it's the black-legged tick that is really, really uncommon in Arkansas. But if you were the really lucky guy that got the black-legged tick that carries Lyme in Arkansas, which doesn't happen very much, it'd be nice for the doctor to know that.
Yeah. Okay. What kind of ticks do we have? If we don't have the black leg,
we got dog ticks.
Okay.
And Lone Star ticks.
Okay.
They carry a host of tick-borne diseases. The big one that kills people is Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and we are a hotbed of Rocky Mountain spotted fever. But there are a lot more. I've had ehrlichiosis before. It's very, very common in Arkansas. In fact, the real name is Ehrlichiosis chaffiensis because it was discovered in Fort Chaffee.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah, and then we have this southern tick related fever rash thing is STARI. They're all kind of alike. They're associated with high fevers. Most respond to doxycycline. Okay. But Arkansas is one of the number 1 states in the union for tick-borne disease, and it can be very, very serious. If you have a fever in the spring or summer in Arkansas, you need to go to the doctor, because it's Rocky Mountain spotted fever until proven otherwise.
Okay. And that's what I was going to ask is, how do you know if you've been bitten, especially if, I'm looking and I don't see anything, but you can't look back on the back of your neck or anything like that. So what would maybe be some symptoms and is it just fever, but things to keep in mind that I've been outside and maybe one of those jumped on me.
Any kind of rash is concerning.
Okay.
A fever in the spring, we don't see a lot of flu. We don't see a lot of things that cause fever in the spring and summer. Certainly you can have flu in August. It happens.
Sure.
But fever in spring and summer in Arkansas, you just got to think Rocky Mountain spotted fever, because if you miss it, bad things will happen, up and to and including dying. But other things like ehrlichiosis, tularemia, all those things need to be treated real quick. So fever, headaches, rash, body aches, and just because you hadn't pulled a tick off doesn't mean you don't have it. Remember, 50% of people that get Rocky Mountain spotted fever or other tick-borne disease do not have a history of finding a tick on them. And I found that in my practice too when I was practicing medicine. Lots of folks didn't remember pulling a tick off of them. And you just got to look for those ticks in the places they hide.
What about treatments? If you can get to a doctor fast enough, because it doesn't have to be fatal.
Right. Oh, most tick-borne diseases respond to doxycycline.
Okay.
It's an antibiotic, and there are other antibiotics that can be used, but it's the one that we use the most. It's the easiest and has the most history behind it.
Okay. We'll go to something a little less ugly, but nonetheless, it's out there, and that's poison ivy.
Oh yeah, it's pretty ugly on its own. Yeah,
poison oak.
I don't know that anybody ever dies from poison ivy, but it is unpleasant.
You may want to die.
Yeah, absolutely. You may think you're going to die. That's right.
What again? As we're gardening, as we're outside, we just want to keep our eyes open. Was it 4-pointed leaf or 3-pointed leaf?
No, what you're looking for is the 3-pointed leaf with a terminal leaf. Yeah, that's what you want to look for. All of the roost family has a 3-pointed leaf, and it'll be 2 little leaves, and the third leaf will have a little tiny stem on it.
Okay.
So if you've got 3 leaves that all come together in the same place, that's probably not one of the roost family.
Okay.
But if the 2 bottom leaves are kind of together, and then the end leaf has a tiny little stem, a terminal leaf, then you just want to avoid it at all costs. Even if it's not poison ivy, you can just stay away from it.
Pretend it is.
Yeah, and I can't recognize the leaves. They all look the same to me. But I can see something with 3 leaves and a terminal leaf, and know I'm better off staying away from that.
Okay. And if you don't stay away from it, and you get home and you realize, is it everything you touch? You're spreading that oil, right?
Who knows?
Okay.
Well, we know it can spread because most of us had the experience of not being out in the woods and having the dog come in and get it on you, that kind of thing, or not touch anything. So, yeah, who knows where the oil comes from or how long it stays? But yes, you're right.
So if you are unlucky and find yourself in that situation, calamine lotion, Benadryl, just whatever to kind of reduce the inflammation.
Everybody has their own cocktail for it. Your grandmother has your grandmother has a way to treat it. Your doctor has a way to treat it, and all of them work okay. Systemic steroids are kind of classic. Prednisone, Decadron. They're fraught with some side effects. Maybe some side effects that we in the past didn't realize. That maybe. We've always kind of thought the occasional steroid shot was probably fine for you. Maybe it's not. Yeah. There are folks that swear by systemic steroids for poison ivy. And if that's what works for you, you could certainly make an argument for that. My cocktail was always the scrubs. There's a class of medicine that it looks kind of like the grouts, the stuff you clean your grout with. They have little beads in it, and you just scrub yourself just really, really hard with it, just as long as you can. And that'll give you like 8 or 9 hours of relief. Okay. And so I would always tell people to just scrub like the devil when they go to bed. And usually they could sleep through the night with that. Yep. And then you could kind of put up with itching during the day with some steroid cream. And sure, whatever your grandmother gave you, calamine, oatmeal, whatever, is probably okay. Yeah. Poison ivy can get infected and can be serious. So if it starts looking like it's infected, if it's not going away, then by all means you'd want to go see the doctor.
How long does it typically hang around?
3 weeks.
Oh, no.
Usually. People are always shocked. They say, well, this has been 3 weeks. Yeah, it's about 3 weeks.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I had no idea it hung on that long.
It is.
Okay.
It's terrible.
Oh, that is not fun. All right. Anything else you'd like to add, Dr. Curtner, about men's health, about ticks, snake bites, anything? Obviously, I leave those devils alone. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back here next week for more AFMC TV.